Before we start, I just want to say, I realize that the shot is overexposed. I don't know what to do about it. It's bugging me a little bit, but we're just gonna have to live with it. We're gonna live. We're gonna forget. We're gonna forgive, and we're just gonna do the video review. Well, after doing our bonus pod on Crimes of the Future, and after being challenged by Trey, I decided it was time to dive into David Cronenberg's filmography. Including Crimes, I had only seen 4 David Cronenberg movies. The others were Videodrome, The Fly, and The Dead Zone. So I decided to watch them more, starting with Shivers from 1975.
No one is safe from them. No power on earth can stop them. The only escape is death. If this picture doesn't make you scream and squirm, you'd better see a psychiatrist. Quick.
And now, after watching Shivers, I know where the sadness came from. I mean, it's all here in Shivers in 75. You've got this thing that's infecting people that makes them, like, do heinous acts, but they can still think like a person. They're still intelligent, but they just want to do these heinous acts and give into perversion and violence, like all these things from the ego and id, you know, just totally giving into their desires, and they can't stop themselves. Except in this movie, in Shivers, it's a slug crawling in through your mouth or other orifice to infect you rather than a virus, which I have to say is a little sillier. Listen, Shivers gives off, like, really strong Italian movie vibes. Like, if I told you that Lucio Fulci made a movie where Barbara Steele gets infected by this neurotoxin slug and becomes a lesbian, you would not even bat an eye. That's a Fulci movie right there. That is an Italian movie. Slug that makes you a lesbian. That's an Italian movie. It just so happens to be made by very Canadian man, David Cronenberg, in his first horror feature. It also reminded me pretty heavily of, like, a Larry Cohen movie, like It's Alive, or I guess later The Stuff. It reminded me of Larry Cohen. It also reminded me of Trauma. There were some, like, Trauma-esque moments. Not quite to the extreme of Trauma, maybe early Lloyd Kaufman stuff. But it's kind of silly. Shivers is kind of a silly movie.
Oh, good heavens. They'd be only hurt. Oh, don't be silly, dear. It's in heaven now, whatever it is.
I think you'd really like my daughter, Erika.
It doesn't have any of the loftiness of Cronenberg's later work. And I guess Cronenberg never lost that fun factor to his movies, but this one's it's a hoot, it's a riot. Now, there are hints of what Cronenberg would become. There are little nuggets of Cronenberg, but his visual style, definitely his visual style, is not fully developed yet. I mean, this still feels like it could be any 70s horror movie visually. I mean, of course, there's talk of erotic flesh. That's very Cronenbergian. There's abdominal trauma. There's stuff crawling around in the guy's abdomen. So maybe old Davey C is in there after all. I don't know. But it definitely does feel a little bit like he hadn't found his footing yet creatively. Now, let me tell you, Joe Silver, what a scene stealer in both this and Rabid. Every scene he's in, he steals it. He is fantastic. I want more of this guy. Joe Silver is like my new favorite character actor. He is so good. He's so infectious. Every scene he's in, I wish he was in more stuff. What a guy. But watching this movie just made me appreciative that I did not live in the 70s, because it was just a wild west of a time from an interior decoration standpoint. I mean, there were, like, splashes of yellow, mustard yellow and booger green on plain white walls. There's fuzzy toilet seat covers. I mean, I've still seen those in grandma's houses, but like that was like common. Like that was a cool thing to have for this young couple in this very new age apartment is fuzzy seat covers. So, whatever fiddles your fancy. My brain stopped working there for a second. I think that Shivers is surreal based on its setting alone. Like, Canada in the 70s does not seem like planet Earth. This feels like an alien movie. Just based purely on the design of everything and the fashion. It's something. I don't know if I like it or if I'm disturbed by it, but it's definitely interesting. Couple weird things I noticed that while I was taking notes on this movie. There's some weird audio mixing in a scene with Barbara Steele and the wife of Puke Man. Like, they're talking and you can barely hear them over the music. It's a weird choice. I don't know if they just, did it in the edit and didn't watch it until it was printed, but it's a very strange choice.
I was going to come and see Nick about 10. Really? That's Stuart? Was he nice to you? Great.
At one point, there's a literal Chekhov's gun in the movie, which is fantastic. I wish more movies had literal Chekhov's gun. That's just fun. You see a gun and you're like, ha. Gonna shoot a slug with that later. Gonna splatter a slug later on. That's what I was thinking when I was watching it. Listen, in summary, it's no Dawn of the Dead. It's not even close to what David Cronenberg would become later on. But, it invented the rage virus subgenre. It has to have major props for that. As far as I know, it invented the rage virus subgenre. So we have it to thank for the sadness and mayhem, and 21 Days Later. So, I appreciate it for that. But man, even at 88 minutes, at a mere 88 minutes, this thing really drags at certain points. It's gotta be the visuals. I mean, just lots of beige and mustard yellow, and I still enjoyed it overall. I would rewatch it a couple years down the line, but it's definitely a far cry from the Cronenberg that we know and love. I'm gonna go with a 6.5 out of 10 on Shivers, which, if I recall, is higher than Night of the Demons. Just throwing that out there. I don't know why I thought of that. But yeah, so Shivers, it's spoiler alert, probably going to be a little lower on my Cronenberg ranking list when I finally get around to doing that. But I still enjoyed it. I think it's inventive, and I think it deserves a 6.5 out of 10. So that's Shivers. Then we get into Rabid from 1977, which is an immediate leap forward in quality in almost every way.
Pray it doesn't happen to you. Rabid.
Like, the shots are more visually interesting, the editing is snappier, and like right from the beginning, right from the first act, you can already tell that it's closer to modern Cronenberg narratively. Like, the ideas are, more Cronenbergian. Because rather than it being about a parasitic slug ravaging people's endocrine systems, it's about your own body turning against you and turning you into something you're not, which is the most Cronenberg concept ever. But yeah, right from Rabid, there's that Cronenbergian, the flesh and the horrors of the human body. It's right here. It's right in Rabid. And already you can tell that, there was something special about him. This wasn't just another Larry Cohen. There was something special about David Cronenberg, Senior, Esquire. Just a couple little things I took notes on. I love the scene where Rosie, our main character, is like, hugs that guy, and his reaction to getting like stabbed in the side is so real.
Look, this is really weird. Are you sure you know what you're... I think I cut myself or something.
Because, like, if you felt something digging into your side whenever you were hugging someone, you wouldn't immediately assume that they were stabbing you. You know what I mean? You'd be like, oh, I think I cut myself on something. So that's a little thing I appreciated. It's grounding us a little bit. It's really the little things that impress me. Whenever I saw a firework, I almost died. I was like, waste colors. And then the scene where Rosie escapes the hospital, she like goes down the road, she goes into a barn. That scene is shot so beautifully. It is gorgeous. Where was that guy, whose name is on the screen right now? Where was he when David Cronenberg was making Shivers? I mean, that movie would have been improved immensely if it had looked like even half as good as this. You know, for a long time in the movie, more than you would expect, it's kind of a mystery how Rosie is infecting the people. Like, the means isn't exactly known. And I understand that it's a reveal that Rosie has an armpit vagina spike. But that just makes the first couple of attack scenes, like, really confusing. It kind of just looks like she's spooning them to death. So I understand that he wanted that to be a reveal, but maybe we could have had hints of that, earlier, so it wasn't shot as confusingly. I don't know, that's just me personally. It's kind of an odd choice. But this movie has one of the most incredible, absolutely incredible car crash sequences I've ever seen in a movie. It's insane. It's gorgeous. I'm gonna have it looping on screen right now, because it's just a feast for the senses. This movie has another all-timer Joe Silver moment. I love this guy, like I said earlier.
That's enough. Okay. There. Ooh. Look at Potato Man. See how Potato Man loves ketchup, man? Leave that. Excuse me. Hello, who's this? What do you want? Do you know what time it is?
That scene is probably my favorite part of the whole movie. I love Joe Silver so much. I wish he was still making movies today. And we're gonna put up on screen now if Joe Silver is still alive or not. Either way, they could do it. CGI him. Rogue One, Joe Silver, into the next Godzilla movie. Make it happen, Paramount. I wrote this down, there's a weirdly prophetic part, like at an hour into the movie, where the government issues vaccine cards.
All those receiving shots of the new vaccine are being issued these plastic identity cards. Viewers are urged not to leave their homes unless absolutely necessary, and are reminded that if they do, they must carry their vaccine cards with them. Police, army, and militia officers may demand to see them. It's
very, but I won't say this movie is timeless, because this was, in a simpler time when you could just smoke a cigarette by the kids' play area in the mall. So I won't say that this was totally, prophetic to what the outbreak would be, but it was just a weird little thing, having vaccine cards. It seems like a strangely, I don't know, maybe that was a thing with, the polio vaccine. Maybe they gave you polio vaccine cards. I don't know if there was a precedent for that, but it would just, send a little shiver down my spine, even though we're talking about Rabid. Yeah. There's lots of great action that comes with the increased budget in this movie. We get that shootout in the mall where the mall Santa gets caught in the crossfire, which is a very Troma-esque visual, a mall Santa being shot by the army. But which just shows that Cronenberg hadn't fully moved out of his Cohen-Kaufman kind of era. He's still in that kind of crowd, but an incredible visual. I really do feel bad for that poor mall Santa. Then there's the performance of a lifetime from the guy playing Hart, whose name is Frank Moore. Let's get a retroactive Oscar for Frank Moore for Rabid from 1977. Because what a role, what a performance. But that segues into a pretty great ending sequence. Really bleak and nihilistic. I would say a hair better than Shivers, though Shivers has that Body Snatchers kind of foreboding, looming apocalypse feeling. Just the bleak matter-of-factness of the ending of Rabid. and the character, like the humanity of it, just makes it a hair better for me. But yeah, a great ending. And after watching the trailer for Rabid, I'm happy to report that they put the ending where we see the main character getting thrown into a trash truck in the trailer, which seems like kind of a spoiler. I don't know. Like, as soon as you sit down in the movie theater, like, oh, she gets thrown into a trash compactor at some point in this movie. It's an odd choice, but I guess 70s trailers were a lot different. I don't know. I would say overall that Rabid is a much more successful film than Shivers. I mean, just, you know, it's just having the human aspect, and it also feels more Cronenbergian, just, you know, due solely, I think, to the Rose having an armpit vagina. I think that pretty much seals its fate as a film of high quality. Yeah, I don't know, it just, there's so many great set pieces. Like, Cronenberg as a screenwriter knew exactly like how to put the main characters in a bunch of different interesting scenarios where they could run into the infected. It's like there's that scene at the construction site. There's just a lot of things where it's like, oh, you go through this in your daily life and you wouldn't even think about what you would do if you were just attacked randomly during that time. So just, yeah, just he put the budget, he put Canada's taxpayer money to good use with Rabid, I think. And I'm gonna give it between a 7 and a 7.5, because I think it is a huge step up in quality. I enjoyed it much more, and even though it is longer in runtime, I think it was paced much better. Which brings me to Infinity Pool from 2023, the new Brandon Cronenberg movie. Some of you might have seen my tweet where I said Megan over Infinity Pool, and I've been itching to talk about that because I was sort of joking, but was I really? Oh, Canada, where pines and maples grow. I had a good theater experience. I had a good time watching it. I think overall, the way I would sum up my thoughts is it was a little leaner than I thought it would be. It felt a little hollow. There are lots of seedlings of interesting ideas, like fear of foreign cultures from travelers, like how rich people treat overseas countries as nothing more than vacation spots, uncertainty in yourself or imposter syndrome. But just like Crimes of the Future with Cronenberg Sr., I feel like those ideas are just established and then nothing's done with them. They're just kind of laid out there, and it's like, hey, think about this maybe next time, you know? It's just like, here are some themes you could think about, and we're not gonna really fully explore any of them. Great performances from Alexander Skarsgård, Julia Lespert, and Mia Goth to a point. Listen, like, I love Mia Goth, but her real-life voice sounds like a Victorian chimney sweep.
I think that it's very political and that it's not entirely based on...
And she's screaming in rhyme and pet names for most of the third act, and it really jarred on my nerves after a while. Jamesy, get out of the bus, Jamesy. You know we're all making fun of you, Jamesy. Just, I think she could have dialed it down maybe just a little bit. Overall, I think the first act was the strongest. I was really invested in that third act leading up to the first execution scene. But I think the third act struggles a little bit. The second and third acts, great finisher. I think that the ending images of the movie were a great way to close it out, pretty haunting. But I think it just loses itself a little bit. And like I said, it introduces all these interesting ideas, but then I feel like it kind of just doesn't explore them in favor of a 5-minute psychedelic orgy scene, which is great. And I understand that, you know, it's a Cronenberg movie. Possessor was much the same way. There were weird sex scenes in Possessor, but I felt more like they were, you know, part of the story. Because in Possessor, you have this identity crisis thing where, like, you know, she's having sex in a different body and she's, like, having weird identity things about it. Whereas in this movie, it's kind of just like, oh, he's tripping and he doesn't know if they're good or not, I guess is the idea. It's just, and it's much longer than any of the trippy scenes in Possessor. So I don't know. I just felt like it had a lot of interesting ideas and it never fully capitalized on them. I think in many ways it is comparable to Crimes of the Future. I think there's a lot of things that that Brandon Cronenberg is falling victim to, just like his dad is. So I don't know. Maybe there's room for improvement in the future, but I will give it a rewatch. I'll have to give it a rewatch because it's one of those ones that you kind of have to watch more than once. But on first impressions, I'm feeling a 7 out of 10 for name of this movie, Infinity Pool, and I think that I like Possessor better. I'll have to revisit Antiviral. On first impressions, I think probably Antiviral is my least favorite. Yep, Infinity Pool, 7 out of 10. I liked it, but hey, I mean, I also liked Megan a lot, so maybe that tweet I made as a hot take is true. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. I have a suspicion that my dad will like Infinity Pool better than Possessor, because there is a human element. But again, I just don't think that the relatable characters are enough to sell the fact that they don't capitalize on any of the ideas fully. So, I don't know. Yeah, Possessor is a little higher for me right now. Antiviral, I suspect, is lower. But again, I'll have to revisit all of them. And make my ranking then. Well, this semester is all about Cronenberg. I'm going to be watching and ranking 11 of his movies. That's all of his indisputed horror movies, plus The Dead Zone, because I had already seen it, and Crash, because my dad challenged me to. And I'm planning on making at least 2 more videos where I review 2 DC movies and 1 BC movie. That's fun to say. They should start a supergroup band together and be called DCBC. I think that'd be pretty cool. But, of course, along the way, we'll be doing bonus pods to cover the more notable releases of 2023. And then at the end of the road, I'll be making my Cronenberg filmography ranking video, where I rank all of David Cronenberg's movies and the 3 feature films of Brandon Cronenberg. So I'm looking forward to it. Got lots of cool stuff coming up. So stay tuned, or I'll spit a neurotoxic slug in your general direction.
Good heavens.
Oh, and also, if you want to join the Joe Silver fan club, hit me up. I'll be taking applications. We're gonna meet every Friday and we're gonna have T-shirts of Joe Silver and pinups of Joe Silver, because he is my new idol. Like, you know how people, like, teenage girls feel about BTS? That's how I feel about Joe Silver. So, looking forward to that.